I find myself in the middle of a gay telenovela, and I am not having a good time. What's up, guys? It's Devin Harrington, the average Gen Xer. Welcome back to my channel. On this channel, I talk about stuff that interests me, and today we're going to have a little story time. And I know I tend to go off on tangents, but I'm going to edit and I'm going to keep this as succinct as possible. As many of you who follow my content may know, I had a normal life a week ago, and then my landlord slash housemate essentially lost his mind, and within 24 hours I suddenly had to move. So and there's all kinds of other drama, but I want to process this, so I think I'm just going to talk about it because it was a really scary, anxiety provoking, difficult, and fear of the unknown, and blah blah blah, and losing a good friend. It was all kinds of the feels, and I think it will be a pretty, like a new chapter. So I want to just talk about this story. So let's get into it. But first, on this channel, I always like to encourage any and all animal lovers to please consider fostering or volunteering on site for your local animal shelter. This is the part of the video where I usually have whatever puppy I'm fostering at the moment, but as I had to move suddenly and I'm in an Airbnb right now for a month, I don't have a foster. But these two lovely goons here are Momo, is the three-legged white American bulldog, and Kubi, short for Kublai, is a pit mix, and they were both fosters of mine, and that is called a foster fail, but it's a good thing because they are my baby boys, and they handled themselves pretty well yesterday. They were very nervous about the move, but we're out in the country, and they are just loving running through the tall grass. So let's get to the story. So I want to preface this story by saying that one of the reasons why I call this channel The Average Gen Xer, one of many reasons, because I found out that I had the average amount of student loans, and that was $30,000. That was my balance as of the pandemic. So I was one of those millions of people who was scammed by Navient and Sally Mae, and I was told if I couldn't afford the monthly payment, just get forbearance. We'll give you 7 years forbearance. Every year I called, got the forbearance. The interest kept running. That's predatory lending. There was a big class action lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. But I borrowed originally about $18,000. I paid back over the years, over the decades, $22,000. And by 2020, when the pause came for the pandemic, my balance was $30,000, and I was on an income-driven repayment plan for years and years and years, which they never told me about in the first 7 years. So anyway, I say that just to say that because of that, I was dragging that debt around like millions of other Gen Xers and other folks. I've never bought a house. I've never bought a new car. Not that you need those things, but I would like to own my own house. And so it was because of dragging around that 30K, income to debt ratio, blah, blah. So that's the preface. Okay, so picture it. It was the Austin, Texas area, November 2023. And I was sharing a house with a girl that I really didn't like, and she didn't really like my dogs, and the landlord wouldn't fix anything. The dryer was broken. That's why I have all these tank tops. Actually, these are my pajamas, but they would keep ripping the straps. I have a million of these. And so I have all these tank tops now that are tied because I was like, fuck it, I'm not buying new clothes because of, to sleep in because of the stupid dryer. So I was very unhappy. And I was going to therapy every week and bitching about it to my therapist. And she finally said, look, why don't you just get on a roommate app and just look and see what's out there? So late November 2023, I decide to do that. So I get on the Roomster app, and you have to put up a profile in order to look at what's available. So I put up a profile, pictures of the dogs, picture of my horse, blah, blah, blah. And a few days later, a guy named, we'll call him A, approached me and on the site and said, "Oh my God, I have the top floor of my house. My roommate of 20 years is moving away, and I need to find someone to rent this part of my house. And because the carpet is so old up there, and I don't want to pay to replace it, I would like to help someone who has big dogs," because he knew that it's very difficult to find a place to rent with big dogs, especially pit type dogs, which is a whole other video. Um, and he was very nice and very classy, very wordy, and explained his situation and said, "Why don't we meet and just come and see me?" And he told me I'm a gay man, which I was like, bonus, because I don't have to worry about him hitting on me. And so I went over to his place. It's a beautiful house. He has it lovely decorated. He's clearly made a few bucks in his life. And we chit chat. And so we really hit it off. And I mean, we hugged goodbye. And I said, "Okay, I'll be moving in December 1st. So December 1st comes. I was so excited. And I got movers. Movers are the way to go. This move to the Airbnb, I did me and two friends in a truck. And I mean, it was a great workout, but definitely go with movers if you can. So movers moved me to my new place with A, who very quickly becomes one of my best friends. He's just the nicest guy, so generous, and my dogs loved him, adored him. Mo wanted to sit in his lap all the time, so that's always a good sign. So time goes by and everything's going fine, and we get to be really dear friends. He calls me sis, I call him bro. And one day, a couple of months after I had moved in there, and this is just full disclosure, he comes up the stairs and says, "I don't have much family left. I don't really have any family left. And I am going to change my will and leave you this house." And I was like, "Excuse me, what?" So that's a nice gesture, but I'm 2 years older than A, so there's every chance that he would outlive me. It was just a very sweet gesture that made us feel like family, among many other things. I mean, we had great times and laughs. A is diagnosed with severe depression, severe major depressive disorder. And so he was in the middle of applying for Social Security disability, and I helped, supported him through that. And then he finally got it, and he got this lump sum payment, and he paid off my car. It was like $7,000. We had a family. We were family to each other. Okay, I had to have a potty break for the dogs. So, about a year and a half goes by, and A and I are like family. He's got his disability, and he wants to buy an RV and go traveling because he is someone who really just worked and worked and worked all his life. Was really fortunate to get into some real high-paying jobs as a personal assistant, executive assistant, that kind of thing. And he now wanted to travel and enjoy life. And he also had never really experienced a long-term monogamous relationship. So we get to be great friends, and we have people at the house, and there's a pool and a hot tub, and I work from home, and it's just a big love fest. Except A, I find out after I moved in, has a very severe drinking problem, like a binge drinker. He would go weeks and weeks sober, best guy you ever met in your life. And then he would start drinking, and he drinks I think it's by Conor McGregor. It's McGregor's scotch. It comes in a plastic bottle on the bottom shelf. It's disgusting. It's rot gut. And he would drink this 8:30 in the morning. He's out there doing multiple shots. I know that people do become alcoholics, but I had never lived with someone that that I had seen, just behaving that way like it was normal. But everybody has their problems, so that didn't make me want to run away. I definitely took on a role of, I hate to say it, but almost like a therapist, And this guy's on disability, so he's got a therapist and a psychiatrist and all these people to help him out. But he was great to talk to, and I am a fixer. I am a problem solver. I am one of those people that if I have any kind of problem, I cannot bear the anxiety, the knot you get like in your throat, in your chest, in your stomach, all of that. I can't deal with it. And so I immediately go into action. Like I do whatever action steps I can because, as they say, action is the antidote to fear. Okay, so cut to like 4 months ago, earlier this year. And one of the things about A that I found out, well, he would get drunk and he would be fun for a couple of days. And then he would hit this tipping point and he would go into a massive downward spiral. And all he would talk about was how he wanted to unalive himself and he wanted me to help him. And he would wake me up at 2 a.m. crying and screaming about this. And there, if you've ever known a true, real hardcore alcoholic like that, there's no talking to them. You can't reason with them. I literally would have to push him, not down the stairs, but push him away from my door and be like, dude, go to bed, sleep it off. So we had some, issues like that, and I was aware of that. But we also had a lot of good talks, and he would tell me how lonely he is and how he just desperately wanted to fall in love and get married and be married and die in his husband's arms. He had this very romantic, almost like a teenage girl. I used to tell him he reminded me of me at 18, just so dramatic and everything so life and death with regard to, I have to find the one, blah, blah. Anyway, so about 4 months ago, he met a guy on Grindr, and we'll call him B. So B is Cuban. He is very slight, slim, one of those people that is just born ripped and stays ripped. He does a lot of, and so he stays very lean, and he's got a cool black mohawk and head tattoos, and he's very interesting looking, very striking. And he also happens to be A's ideal type. A is hung up on finding a guy that looks like B. And the fact that he stumbled upon one on Grindr, like he cannot get past the exterior. And so over the 4 months, I think they were together maybe a week, and A co-signed a Toyota sports car for B. B also, no shade, no judgment. He works as a sex worker, and he lied and told A that originally that he drove Uber and blah, blah, blah. So already tons of lying going on. And as the person living in the house watching this go on and begging A to slow down, that this was not good and he barely knows this guy, it was one of the most toxic pairings I have ever seen, because within 3 weeks, I think A had moved B into the house, and B would be swanning around in his brocade dressing gown, blasting like club music and, whatever music you like, but just blasting it. And I'm there trying to work, so it was a contentious situation right out the gate. And so this began, and then for the ensuing months, these two, all they did was fight and break up and fight and break up. I mean, to an insane extent. And it was all because, of course, B wanted A to buy him stuff, because B saw what a nice house A owns and all the nice things inside it and the fancy car that A has. So it was like, a tale as old as time. Anyway, so I am on edge about this. I don't like this guy. I keep telling A, this is a bad situation. His other friends have been telling him that. The first month, bought him a Toyota sports car. B drove it to Florida, where he's from, crashed it, totaled it, called crying from the side of the road with a police report. And, they had just bought this car. And so then A gives him a blank check and sends him off to the Infinity dealership, thinking, because B had told A that he was going to buy an SUV because he desperately needed one so he could drive Uber, because he apparently knows he's getting older and he can't do sex work forever. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, sorry. So he's going to drive Uber. So what does he come back with? Of course, a 2-door sports car. And then he drove that to Florida. So this guy's just going back and forth. He's got some family in Florida. His mom is older. She's ailing. He's going to visit his mom, but his mom lives with his sister, and his sister does not allow him to stay in the house. He can come and visit mom, but he cannot stay there. So there's already red flags going up, and I would hear bits and pieces of the story because I know A was embarrassed and knew, like, this is really weird. This guy is calling me, trying to get money out of me for this, for that. But A was so into B physically, he was like brainwashed. He would do anything. And believe me, I'm old enough to know that you can't argue with lust. You want what you want. And when it comes along, it might be a once in a lifetime thing. So have at it. If you're both mutually consenting adults, of course. So the household just became this crazy, chaotic back and forth, back and forth. The cops were there a few times. A would get drunk. B doesn't drink because he does meth instead. And he hated A drinking. And it was just a freaking circus. And I do not live that way. My home is a sanctuary, peaceful, calm, good vibes. But this was unbearable. And in his lucid moments, A would, get off the sauce for a while, and he would be lucid, and he would say, yeah, I know he's totally using me for money, but the physical is too good, and I have never experienced this, and I'm going with it. And I totally get it. You gotta try, but it was a situation of where everybody could see this guy's a con artist, and he is sucking everything out of A as fast as he can. So then cut to last week. So A had been drunk for weeks, and was just on the phone with his other female friend and talking to me constantly, and just kept saying, but I love him. And I just could not help but think of my 18-year-old self when I fell in love with my first love, the good-looking drug addict liar. I love him. I'm nothing without him. Oh, it's just so ridiculous. Have compassion for your younger self, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Anyway, so that's about where A is. He thinks he's in love. It's to anyone with a thinking brain, it's clearly limerence, because the love is only going one way. A is obsessed with B, and B is obsessed with getting stuff out of A and money. In my opinion, as the person who was living in the house. So I chased B out of the house once because A and I had agreed he was not allowed in the house anymore. It's just too dramatic. Like, they couldn't go one day, a couple hours, without having some argument about nothing. I constantly heard B calling A a liar, you're lying to me, you're cheating on me. Meanwhile, B is cheating all over the place, and he has a job as, that's what he does for a living. It was madness. And so they're having a big argument one night because A is drunk, B doesn't drink. He gets mad every time A drinks. And I finally went down in there and just like opened the door and I was like, you need to go because this is not healthy for anyone. You guys make each other miserable. You cannot come in someone else's house and behave like this. I mean, you just can't, especially when you have no place to live because he was just couch surfing. That's why he's all over the place. Have no job. It's just rude. It's so rude. And I chased him out of the house. I was like, come back and get your stuff later. This is ridiculous. And A is crying drunk, walking out to the driveway, hanging on to the door. I'm trying to like get him back in the house before somebody calls the cops. And B drives off in one of his many cars in his brocade dressing gown. I find myself in the middle of a gay telenovela, and I am not having a good time. Okay, I put some real clothes on, took the dogs for a walk. We are now up to last Thursday, where A, my dear friend / landlord / housemate, has finally been somewhat sober for a number of hours. And I went down to his room and talked to him, and he was saying how I know this has been a nightmare for you, and I'm really sorry, and you don't pay rent to be treated this way, and I have to get away from this guy. He has, really messed with my head. I've lost so much money on him, on and on and on. So he's finally seeing the situation as it is. And he said that now that he's not drunk, he's so mad that B gave him the runaround like this and kept the carrot of his love and affection dangling on the stick that he wanted to go to the apartment where B was staying and do harm to him. And I said, hey, come on. No, let's just move on with our lives. And now we can breathe again. And he came and got his stuff. And so I thought that everything was back on an even keel. And this was Thursday morning. So I go upstairs and I work for 40 minutes. I come back downstairs and there's A putting a ball cap on. And I said, where are you going? He said, nowhere. Lie. I said, you're putting on a ball cap to get back in bed? Yes. Lie. Finally, he comes out to the kitchen. At this point, he's shit-faced again. He must have done 4 shots at least in the 40 minutes that I was upstairs working. So he's drunk again, and he said he called an Uber. He said, I called an Uber, and I'm going over to that apartment where he's staying, and I'm going to unalive him, and I'm going to unalive myself. And I didn't 100% believe him, but he's wasted, and he just said that. So that gives me a reason to get his psychiatrist involved. And all I was trying to do was get him some freaking help and not have him, lose the rest of his money. Because you have to remember, this guy is on Social Security. He only has a fixed income, and I'm, probably has like interest from his investments and stuff, but he is not as wealthy as he once was, and he is acting that way to impress this guy. So I watch A walk drunkenly down the driveway and get in the Uber and drive away. And I had no idea where he was going, where that apartment was, or anything. So at this point, the only thing that I could do was let his psychiatrist know what's going on. And I really wanted to feel like, if I was off the rails like this, I would hope somebody cared enough about me to call someone and let them know. So my mom had the brilliant idea, of all people, of taking a picture of one of his medication bottles and getting his doctor's number from there, because I didn't know who his doctor was. So I did that. I called the office. I let the assistant know the whole story. And immediately after that, the sheriff's deputies called me, and they said they were aware of the situation. They came out to the house to talk to me. That was like the 3rd time the cops were at the house last week, which I am not a fan of. And I told them the whole sordid story and how A seemed like he had turned a corner that morning, and he was saying that he was going to get his shit together and he was going to quit drinking again and he was going to go back to therapy, and he had all these big plans. Like, he was going to move on, he was going to find a healthier relationship. And then within 40 minutes, that all went to shit. So I also let them know that they might find A and B at a Tesla dealership, because after A bought the Toyota sports car, which B totaled, then a Infiniti, which B crashed, and then the Cadillac, which is sitting in the garage still, going nowhere, B decided that in order to remain A's love forever, he really needed a Tesla. And at first, it was, if you co-sign, I'll be yours forever. And then it was, no, you have to buy me this Tesla outright, and then I'll be yours forever. And then finally, it was, well, you have to get me the Tesla, but we also have to move to Miami, so he could be closer to his mom, who is sick. And also, it's much better business for him in Miami. So all I heard for like the last week was Tesla Miami, Tesla Miami. That's what A said to me. That's all he talks about. So the cops tell me they'll keep trying to get a hold of him, but there's no crime going on, so they can't do much. So I had the place to myself for the next day, and then I woke up the next morning, and there were cars in the driveway. There was a white SUV that I didn't recognize, and there was a brand new black Tesla. And I knew pretty much what had happened. So in that time, I don't know what B said to A, but he hooked him good and got him to go buy the new Tesla. And then A moved B into the house again, and two friends of B's, this gay couple from somewhere else, I guess they had been to Houston, and so these guys tagged along back, and they were staying in the house as well. And I didn't know what was going on, so by the time everyone wakes up that morning, I told A, look, you gotta give me an explanation here, because you remember what state you were in and what you said when you left the house a day and a half ago? And so we went outside, and he said, I love him with all my heart, and we're getting married, and you can't get along with him, so you have to move out. And that was so much of a whiplash 180 from where things had stood a day and a half before that I was just like stunned silent for multiple reasons. Like, I just couldn't fucking believe this idiot was falling for this scam. And I couldn't believe that I found myself caught in the middle of this. And I couldn't believe that I was going to have to move in Austin in like a matter of days. So I just stood there. And one thing about actors, you got to really practice eye contact. When you're doing a scene with someone, you're always giving them eye contact. So I'm pretty good at giving eye contact. And I just stood there looking at him like, I just cannot believe this. I cannot believe. I mean, yes, it's A's house, and A has a right to do all of that. But to treat me that way and not be honest about any of it and not just give me a heads up, not even a text, nothing, is so disrespectful. And this was a guy who had begged me to please don't move out. I was thinking when I moved in, I would be there like 6 months. And he got me to throw away all my moving boxes because he wanted me to stay forever. So I was just in a state where I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to move past the moment of hearing that I have to move, because then it wouldn't have to be real yet. So I just kept my mouth shut, and I didn't say a word to anyone for days, but I gave them plenty of eye contact. So for the next day, A and B are packing up the Tesla, getting ready to hit the road and drive to Miami. And at one point, there was a thunderstorm. My dog Mo is really afraid of thunderstorms, and he would always, in the past, run into A's room. And so he did that. So I had to go in there to get him. and A was laying on his bed while B was packing the Tesla. And I go in and grab my dog, and A says, "Hey, listen, so these two guys are going to stay here. I gave them power of attorney over my house, so they're going to manage the house. So if you want to stay, you could get another roommate upstairs, blah, 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 blah." Like as if nothing happened. And I just stopped him and I was like, "You're dead to me. You cannot be serious." I mean, that's a little dramatic to tell someone they're dead to you, but I was really hurt that someone that I helped and stood up for and really did love as a friend and a brother would treat me like that. It was just obnoxious. So that was the last thing I said to him. And they packed the Tesla, they rode off into the sunset. So, next thing, these two guys, they start trying to make me move out faster. And they think they're going to yell at me. And that's just no kind of way to do nothing. So, first, being a not so enlightened being, I yelled back at them. And there was one incident where they were cleaning in the backyard and they were telling me that I didn't pick up the dog poop enough, and I have a trash can that it goes in. And they were, one of them screaming at me. There was the short one who was the alpha and the tall one who was like the silent type. And the short one screaming at me, "You're a nasty bitch. You're a nasty bitch." And there were a lot of, A had a thing about fake flowers. So he had these cheesy fake hanging baskets of flowers. And the short one's got one of each in each hand. And I forget what I said, but I was mouthing off to them because that's what I do. Because I like to see what people will say, how they will react when someone says something to them they're not expecting. So I mouthed off to him and he comes rushing at me like he's going to hit me. Except he's got two hanging baskets of fake flowers in his hands. And I burst out laughing in his face. And he did not like that. So it was that 24 hours a day. One of them is a DJ. He got his gear brought from Houston and blasted it louder than you would have in a club. So it was hard enough knowing the clock is ticking. I mean, he gave me the 30-day standard notice at the time, but everything had changed so rapidly. It was crazy. And the fact that I watched my friend turn into somebody else overnight was really confusing and sad, and it was just a bummer. But like I said, when I got a knot in the pit of my stomach, I have to take action. So the first thing I did, since I listened to YouTube videos all day while I'm working, is I started listening to Stoic philosophy. There's tons and tons of channels out there, and they usually use like a really soothing older man's voice for the AI voiceover, but it's some really great stuff. And one of the Stoic philosophies is that if something is beyond your control, then you have no need to worry about it because nothing you can do about it. So I just practice letting go, letting go, letting go. I listen to a lot of Buddhist philosophy as well. So I had a few stare downs with B because at this point, this guy has come along and wreaked havoc on my life. And if they were happy together, I would be happy for them. I would be thrilled. But this was not a happy situation. It was not a healthy situation in any way for anyone. So A comes to me and tells me, "Hey, B is not comfortable living in the house with you, so he and I are going to vacate." Those were his exact words. He does this talky talk thing where he acts like he's super classy, but underneath it all, he's just the average scumbag. And I know this, and I can say this because every time he would be drunk, he would tell me what a piece of shit he is. And I would build him up and say, "Look at all the nice things you've done for me." So he says, "We're going to vacate." And these two guys, they're a gay couple, and they tagged along, apparently, from Houston. I'm going to pay them to clean the house and be in charge of the house. So you need to move, and you have 30 days. And I didn't say a word, just stared at him. So then as my Stoic philosophy thing was helping a little bit, one thing I've learned to do whenever you're in really like dire need of something, or even not even dire need, but whenever you need anything, a car, a bed, a new place to live, anything, just start telling everyone you know. Whenever you think of it, and not in a desperate way, like, oh my God, please help me, but more like, hey, I have this situation, just keep it in your back pocket if you hear anything. Because someone that you know knows someone who has what you are looking for, and they are looking for you. So I started doing that, and that was an ongoing action. And it was really great to see my friends come out of the woodwork by text to check on me. It's easy when you are single and don't have any children, don't have any family nearby. It's easy to feel alone in situations like this. I know for myself, it is so easy to go into the depressive cycle of thinking, what did I do to deserve this? How did I make this happen? What's wrong with me that they're treating me this way? But I didn't do any of this. I tried to be a good friend to A. Nothing else I can do. So let it go. Listen to some good philosophy stuff on whatever your topic is, and just tell everyone you know what you need. And so I don't even think it took 2 days, but I happened to call my boss, who is a longtime friend of mine, and told her the situation. And she just happened to have a neighbor who has an Airbnb, which he rents for the same exact amount I was paying for rent. And I had looked into Airbnbs. That was one suggestion I got. And they were like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month for these big places. I couldn't find anything that was little. But this is a little, I mean, you can see it's just a big room, bedroom. There's the bathroom over there, and then it's got like a little galley kitchen, and it's just everything you need. Oh, and also, it's on the grounds of an animal sanctuary. And if you watch my content, you know there is no place I'd rather be than an animal sanctuary. And so I'm doing all my things to make stuff happen. I find this Airbnb. Okay, I can stay here for at least a month. So that's what I keep thinking about. And I start packing. And there was a moment where, what day was this? So it was probably like last Wednesday. All of a sudden, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on the phone talking to my mom, and I can hear all of a sudden the short one screaming in Spanish at the top of his lungs, like he was about to rip someone's head off. And then another guy yelling back at him, and then I can hear like the pushing and like hands hitting chests and stuff. So I was like, Mom, I gotta go. So I called 911 because I could tell they were outside. And the sheriff arrives, and they said, you weren't even the first person to call 911 because they were in the front yard, chest to chest, screaming at each other about to have a fist fight. Which is, if you will treat your spouse, because they said they were husband and husband, if you'll treat your spouse like that in the front yard, what the hell are you doing to them behind closed doors? It was like every day something new with like, how crazy is this going to get? So the sheriff comes. I talk to them privately. I tell them what I heard, and I said, look, I got an Airbnb. I'm moving Saturday. You have got to tell these guys to leave me alone because they hate dogs. They're going to do something bad. One of them is definitely not above beating me up, etc., etc. And it was one of the same deputies that had been there before. And so then they take the two guys out, and of course they were on their best behavior. You would have thought they were just the most regal gentlemen you ever met. So I don't know what they said to them. I'm assuming they told them that I was leaving Saturday and just fucking chill, dude. Like. So I didn't see either one of them. Thursday, Friday, into Saturday. I didn't see them at all. And that was a real, took some pressure off. That was really good. So I hope this is not like too rambling of a story. I know I'm going on like 40 minutes now. I was hoping to keep it under a half hour, but I am now in an Airbnb. I don't know where I'm moving to. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have learned once again, this is the kind of lesson that life likes to teach us over and over again. Everything is going to be fine. Don't panic. Something will come, even if it's temporary. Just don't go into a negative spiral and remain calm and meditate and do your, what is this? Pranayama breathing? I don't know. It's been a very long week. Anyway, that is my crazy story of why I suddenly had to move out of a house I thought I would always live in. So that just proves you really can't count on anyone but yourself, y'all. If you like this video, please like it. This is not really the kind of content I usually do. This is just a one-off crazy shit that I had to tell the story of. I will be back on Wednesday with some more Reddit reactions, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much.